Sports Podcast hosted by Peter DiBiasi and John Rocco Trumpbour right here on YouTube. Man, do we have a special episode for you guys today. We are joined by former NFL quarterback Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson played 15 years in the NFL for 4 different franchises, including the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Redskins, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Johnson was also a 2-time Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champ with the Buccaneers in 2003. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys reaching out. We'll have a little fun here and tell some stories.
Thank you. JR, kick it over to you. Before we start with the questions, just to tell our viewers where to find us on social media.
Hey, guys. Also, if you're watching this, please hit the subscribe button. Help us out a little bit. This will also be available on Apple Podcasts. Link's going to be in the bio. Also, links for our Instagram and Twitter. We started posting weekly now. We're going to be posting more and more. So please follow us, Talking Sports PD on Twitter and Instagram. And so I'll kick it off with the first question. So Brad, you played basketball and football in high school. And I read that your goal after high school was actually to play for Georgia Tech in basketball. However, you chose Florida State in football because of your potential. So first question, what was it like to be a 2-sport athlete in college, especially at like a program like Florida State?
Yeah, when I went to Florida State, I went on a football scholarship. And you can only have one scholarship. So I was playing for Coach Bobby Bowden. I was actually redshirted my freshman year in football. And one of the deals when I went to Florida State is, hey, can I play 2 sports? You always say that. And the coaches always nod their head, but I don't know if they really mean it. But being redshirted, so I went out. I was kind of killing time in practice, wasn't doing anything in football, honestly. And so I went to talk to Pat Kennedy, the basketball coach, and he said, come on out. And so I got in the very first scrimmage and hit some points and kind of got going. And I started my freshman year for about 13 games. We made it to the NCAAs that year. And then I ended up playing 2 years of basketball at Florida State. And at that point, it was a little bit different for me. I was competing with quarterbacks, and I was also competing with other point guards playing basketball. So I wasn't giving it full time, and I was having to compete at both sports. And so when basketball was starting, I was a little bit late because of football, the length of the football season. And then we'd have spring football practice. There was 20 practices then. And I was missing about half the practice because we were in the NCAA basketball tournament. So it was tough on me. Grade-wise, I made it happen. But playing both sports is tough. It was a passion of mine. Glad I did it. Played with some great teams, but it's tough to do, though.
Yeah, I know that basketball I think it was your favorite sport. I know you obviously had a great NFL career, no doubt about that. Like probably you have no double thoughts about going both ways, but is there ever like in your mind, you ever wonder what could have been if you played basketball? Like, yeah, because were you supposed to commit to Georgia Tech wasn't Dennis Scott there too?
Yeah. Bobby Crimmins was the head coach, and I grew up in North Carolina, and I went to all his camps when he was at Appalachian State, and he was at Georgia Tech, and been to all his camps and all those kind of things. And then Roy Williams, who actually ended up coaching North Carolina, that was watching Michael Jordan and Brad Daugherty and Sam Perkins and James Worthy. I mean, I love basketball. Basketball is something you can do in your backyard. Football, you can't just go do it by yourself a lot of times. So it's an easy sport to like, honestly. But at some point, I had to make a decision. I was a 6'5" guy that could shoot a basketball, but I knew I wasn't going to go to the next level as far as just what the next level took. Football-wise, I really hadn't reached my potential yet. And so that's when, at some point, I reached my peak in basketball, but being a 6'5" quarterback at that time, Ben Testaverde was the prototypical kind of quarterback. And that's kind of where the NFL level was going. And so I want to make that decision. What was my most potential as a player? And then Dennis Scott, obviously at Georgia Tech, had an 11-year NBA career. Kind of, I didn't want to sit the bench, for 4 years behind him either,
Yeah, and you did make the good choice.
After finishing your college career at Florida State, you were selected in the 9th round in the NFL draft. And for our viewers, actually, that 9th round doesn't exist in the NFL anymore. It's only 7 rounds. But take us through the draft process. For example, what teams did you meet with? How did those meetings go? Did they tell you they were going to draft you? And did you expect to get drafted? For a lot of us, obviously, we're never going to experience that, and just viewers that don't really know about the draft process in depth.
Yeah. The one thing you control in your life is your attitude and effort. you don't control the consequences or things that are going around you. So in college, I only started 6 games in my career. I only started 1 game my senior year. I was behind a guy named Casey Weldon. We were best friends. He was up for the Heisman. We had the #1 team in the country. Casey and I got both drafted that same year. It's only happened with 2 other quarterbacks, was Billy Joe Hobart and Mark Brunell out of the University of Washington. So for me, only playing 1 year, in my senior year, chances were very slim I was going to get drafted. I was fortunate enough to get to the combine. They invite 20 quarterbacks to the combine. They invite 3 guys to throw to the DBs, linebackers, and running backs, and then do all the testing there too. So when I left the combine, I thought I was the #1 quarterback. And, all the other 28 teams at that time, they did not think so. But things happen for a reason. I was drafted the 14th quarterback out of that 92 draft. Had a lot of great quarterbacks. All of us made it. All the guys that got drafted made it in the NFL. Had longer, some had short careers, some had a little bit longer. But at that time, the only team I thought was really going to draft me was the New York Giants. They had 2 older guys, and Phil Hostetler and Jeff Hostetler and Phil Simms. And so I thought that had been the perfect place for me. They said they're going to draft somebody about the 4th or 5th round. So they ended up drafting Kent Graham in the 4th round, I believe. And so in the 7th round, I had a friend of mine from Atlanta Falcons call me and said, "Brad, if you don't get drafted, we'd like to bring you as a free agent." And I told him, I said, "Listen, I didn't know how the NFL worked at that time. I said, listen, if I don't get drafted, I'm just going to go back home to Black Mountain, North Carolina, and be a school teacher. I don't know. Chances are I'll ever make it if I don't get drafted." So right about the 9th round, that's the 227th pick, the Minnesota Vikings, they picked me. And then that was all she wrote. That was the beginning of it. And Minnesota Vikings, they had Rich Gannon, Wade Wilson, Sean Salisbury with the other 3 quarterbacks. And the guy that actually drafted me was a guy named Jack Burns, who was at University of Louisville when I was in North Carolina, who recruited me to come to Louisville. So he just kept up with my career, knew who I was, knew what the grind was about with me. And so he took the chance on me as far as kind of a diamond in the rough, and that they could mold me. So that's kind of how the draft process went for me.
Damn, that's really cool. And you just mentioned Rich Gannon. You did later in your career play him in the Super Bowl. So, what was that like? Because you started as a rookie, under him. What was it like to actually play him in the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Rich and I really, honestly, if you look at our careers, we had very, very similar careers. The first 3 years in Minnesota, he barely played. I didn't play. He kind of got going, went to Washington 1 year, which I went to Washington for 2 years. Then he went to Kansas City, then went to Oakland, had an incredible career. But when I went to Minnesota Vikings, I was a 3rd-string QB. I got no reps. Rich was a really, really good quarterback at that time. And he became a better passer. And he became the quarterback he was over time. But Rich when he came from University of Delaware, kind of guy people didn't give a lot of credit to coming out of college from, playing in the wing T. I think they drafted him as a running back or DB. But Rich was spectacular, hard-nosed, a great leader, tough guy. And it's really unique how our stories kind of end up meeting up again 10, 11 years later after we were together the first year. But have all the respect in the world for Rich. He was the MVP of the league. And so it's a pretty unique story for both of us.
Was he a good mentor for you? Did he help you early on in your career develop?
Yeah, we were only together. I mean, honestly, the first year, but when you say that, we were really only together for probably 3.5 months, 4 months with the regular season. So I would say what I learned from Rich was he was a guy that was organized. He was a hard worker. He loved football. He was well respected by all the other guys, but you don't really get mentored sometimes more when you're a young guy. You got to watch the others and just learn from their mistakes, learn from their plays, and they'll help you out when you have questions and stuff. But it's really more about working together and how you're going to win that week and those kind of things. But I had all the respect for Rich. I remember that and just how tough he was and how well respected he was with everybody.
Gotcha.
Kind of sticking with that kind of mentor type of question, you were also able to sit behind Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon. So kind of take us through what was he like, and were you able to learn anything from him? Obviously, playing behind him and watching him play is obviously beneficial, but it's also better to get on the field. But what did Warren Moon help you? Because obviously, he eventually got into the Hall of Fame, which is the highest honor in the NFL.
Listen, I played with some great quarterbacks. I was with Rich Gannon, Jim McMahon, Warren Moon, Wade Wilson, Randall Cunningham, Dante Culpepper, Jeff George. I mean, the list goes on with all the quarterbacks that I played with. There should be a 30 for 30 on all the guys I actually played with. Me and Steve DeBerg. it'd be an interesting thing for people to look up. But when I was with Warren Moon, I was in my third year of the NFL, and he was a guy I actually, had posters of him kind of growing up through high school, and loved the way he threw the ball. He was at the played University of Washington, went to Canada for 6 years, and then kind of came back and earned his way with the Houston Oilers, and then finished his, our time in Minnesota. But he was a guy that he was very, very consistent in who he was. Great in practice, great in games, respected by everybody, could deliver in the clutch. I remember just kind of the way he handled himself. There's a big distinction between a boo and a cheer. And there's a big distinction when you throw an interception and a completion and a touchdown. So, but I remember he could handle all those kind of situations. I learned from him how to handle your team, how to handle your huddle, how to handle success and failure and all those kind of things. So I really, when my career went on, I try to pass that on to younger players, just the way I carried myself, and hopefully they would kind of learn from just watching as much as anything, just the way you handle different situations and stuff. So love playing for Warren Moon, obviously a Hall of Famer, pretty awesome to say we played together.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned the boos and the cheers, and obviously there's two different things. And how did you handle that? Because obviously we see, especially today's athletes, obviously social media is much different now, but people still get booed when they miss shots, when they throw an interception. So how do you handle it after you throw an interception? You go to the bench and the crowd's just completely against you. How do you handle that? And because you got to get back for the next possession and do better. So how do you kind of go from one gear of getting booed to just putting that behind you?
Social media has changed everything. I mean, it's instant. There's tweets. We didn't deal with Twitter and phones and cameras and all those kind of things. And, fantasy football was just kind of beginning to take place kind of about the end of my career, those kind of things. So used to kind of laugh at those kind of things. Now it's out there immediately. So it used to be a big deal when you threw for 4,000 yards. It used to be a big deal when you threw for over 300 yards in a game. I mean, that was elite. It was special. The game has changed. The game has completely changed. You look at stats, the numbers, the style of play, what's going on, the way they protect quarterbacks and the way the defenses are. It's a little bit – I think guys are tremendous players, but the stats and stuff are a little bit different now. So it is tough. And you can't really distinguish as a player what fans know the difference between a screen door and a screen pass, And so, you can't really get caught up into what everybody's saying. You have to get caught up into what your team thinks, how you're performing, and what your coach feels as you as a player. So if you're worried about people's opinions and thoughts and cheers and boos, you're not gonna be very lasting. So you have to embrace it, the success with the failure, and those are the kind of things that come along with it.
Makes sense. You can't let that get to you, because obviously that'll affect your play on the field.
There's no doubt about it. It can. I mean, there's going to be, I don't even know if people read newspapers anymore. You know what I mean? I really don't. But with, there's so much Twitter, so much social media, Instagram. Nothing's really good enough anymore. Nothing is good enough. Mm-hmm. If you win the Super Bowl this year, who let's say Mahomes. Let's say Mahomes wins it. Well, he's only won 2.
Yeah, he's got to win another one next year.
Last year, you got killed last year. Aaron Rodgers, he can't win nothing. I mean, Peyton Manning, he only won 2. I mean, Tom Brady's won 7. I mean, nothing's good enough anymore, Yeah. And so I think you just have to get caught up into how much, you pour everything into it that you can control. And what I said earlier was the only thing you control is your attitude and effort. You can't control outside factors. You can't control who says you're good or who says you're bad. You have to control, the way you perform, the way you get ready for games, and then so be it after that.
Yeah, that is very true. So you also got to experience something that only a select few got this experience in their career, and that is winning a Super Bowl. So playing in Super Bowl 37 against the Oakland Raiders, can you bring us through, take us through all the nerves that comes with the Super Bowl, the preparation, how you personally felt and how to prepare going into a Super Bowl as a player?
Yeah. I'll take you back real quick here. In 1987, I was a senior in high school, and the great New York Giants with Phil Simms beat the great Denver Broncos with the great John Elway. And after the game, that was the first year that Phil Simms, after the Super Bowl, they named an MVP or whatever. And he said the confetti was falling on his face. He went 22 for 25 and threw 3 touchdowns. And he said, I'm going to Disney World. So 16 years later in 2003, I got to say the same thing, hold my son Max and my wife Nikki, 7.5 months pregnant. And with confetti falling on our face, and we got to say we're going to Disney, you know? And so the year was a pretty awesome year. In 2002, 2003, Jon Gruden became the head coach. We made a bunch of moves in free agency. You know, what happens is that the grind is real. The off season, the work is real. The training camp is real. They're going through at that time, a 16-game schedule. It's real. Me having cracked ribs and playing with you know, all kinds of injuries during the season, that's real, you know? And so you have to earn your way to the playoffs. Early in the year, we lost to the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. October 20th, we lost like 20-10, something like that, and felt like it was 55-2. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of had our nemesis, and we made the playoffs. We were 12-4. We beat San Francisco at home, and then we went up to Philadelphia, our nemesis, and beat them in the cold, which we hadn't done before. The last game in the vet, they went to four straight NFC playoff championships, and so we got hot at the right time of year. And then we go to the Super Bowl. The nerves and stuff. It's really interesting. For us, there was only a 1 week difference between the championship game and the Super Bowl. Usually, it was 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so when the championship game is over, there's a lot to get ready for. You know, you have to get tickets for your family. You got to get plane flights for your family. You got to get hotels for your family. I mean, a lot's going on a week, not alone travel from Tampa to San Diego and handle all these kind of things. So, but I remember for me, I was just excited to play. It wasn't more about nerves. The 2 weeks, it can make you nervous. You can think too much about it.
Too much time.
Yeah, I was really thinking about focusing the Jon Gruden system of calling the plays and just, you know, getting ready for the game. That we kind of got lost in the moment of just let's run these plays and it's another week to play. So I wasn't really nervous. It was more about excitement to play in that game. And in the game, you kind of just get caught up into the game, not as much as the hype of it. You get caught up in the game. So that was a big deal for me. 2 weeks could have made a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, sticking with the Super Bowl. Obviously you had a great game, and obviously you guys won. But like, take us through. Like, you get to the stadium, you're getting ready for the game, and you take a couple snaps, and like, do the nerves just kind of go away? And like, how do you think you felt? You obviously you played great enough to win. You played great, but like, the Super Bowl is a different element. It's not an NFC Championship, AFC Championship. Like, it's a step above. It's just like so many things go on, and just like take us through the actual game. And if you remember any of it, because a lot of people tell us they play through games, they just don't remember anything from it just because they're so focused in on that moment.
Yeah, we could probably do a 6-hour story on this if you really wanted to. But honestly, the guys that win it, they'll tell you it's one of the best days of their life. The guys that lose it, they'll tell you, it's just kind of another game and got away from us. It's tough, you know. But for me, driving to the stadium, usually I'd read my playbook the whole way and kind of just getting that extra little study time. But that day I decided, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy the ride. And usually you have to be at the stadium 2 hours before the game. That day, because of the traffic and everything that's taking place, I had to be there about 3 hours and 40 minutes before the game. So I remember driving down the highway in San Diego. There were 6 lanes on this freeway and 6 lanes on this freeway. There were no other cars. You talk about the police escort, it was unbelievable. There were no cars on the freeway. So we get there to the game, and you know, you usually warm up an hour before the game, but this game you have to warm up like an hour and 30 minutes ahead of time because of the way all the pre-hype stuff is taking place. But I remember, you know, it's a day you don't get tired. It's a day of just, you know, you're full of energy, but at the same time, you got to just run your plays. You can't be too nervous about anything, you know? And so it was really cool before the game. The Dixie Chicks sang the national anthem, and Don Shula and Bob Greasy and Larry Zonka, they're out there for the coin flip, and heroes of mine growing up. And, you know, it does take a first 4 or 5 plays to kind of get the feel of the game because there is a little extra energy, you know, but then once the game gets going, it's flow. And, but I remember there's a lot of TV timeouts. You know, the TV timeouts take a long time. The halftime, usually it's 12 minutes, but at halftime at the Super Bowl, there's 34 minutes. Shania Twain singing and all those kind of things. But we got early in the game. It took a quarter for us to kind of get in rhythm of the game. And then the second quarter, we took off. We ended up 23 at halftime, 20-3, and threw a touchdown pass to Keenan McCardell. And at halftime, I'm like, man, we got a chance to win this thing. Yeah. And coming out of the third quarter, we had an 89-yard drive, put us up 27-3, and like, man, we got a chance, you know. And we actually went up 34-3. I'm like, God, we're gonna win this thing. And all of a sudden, here it comes. Rich Gannon threw a touchdown pass to Jerry Rice. They block a punt for another touchdown. He throws another touchdown pass to Jerry Porter. Like, it's 34-23 real fast. And then we had to close the game out, and then we ended up winning 48-21. 48-21 was the score. And it's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling to say you're world champs, to be a part of that. And there's so many great coaches and players and that were part of that thing. You see it, John Lynch, and he's gone on to do it with the 49ers, and Mike Tomlin. He's went on to win Super Bowl, head coach at Pittsburgh Steelers. But so many great coaches and so many great players were part of that team. It takes everybody being healthy and being good at the same time.
Kind of sticking with that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, you played with some great players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You had Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, and Simon Rice on the other side of the ball. Knowing how good they were and the impact they had on each game, how was it playing with them, and just knowing that if you made a mistake, they had your back?
Yeah, if you're going to win it, you better have a great offense, a great defense, and as you saw this past weekend in the playoffs, you better have a great kicker too.
Yeah.
You better have somebody in the clutch. So our defense was tremendous. 3 of those guys went on to make Hall of Fame with Lynch and Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp, and hopefully Rondé Barber will get in here real soon, and then maybe Simeon Rice. But defense has some other great players they don't talk about either. Greg Spires and Brian Kelly and Dexter Jackson was the MVP of the game, and Shelton Quarles. But offensively, we had Mike Allstott and Joe Giravicius, Keenan McCardell, Keyshawn. I mean, there's a lot of talent. But on a team like that, a lot of times we had a lot of big stats in the first half, but then a lot of times we played with the lead. We'd kind of close the game out by, running the ball and just trying to close the game out. So the game's changed, but it's full of, very unselfish players, and you just want to win the game. But it takes great players. It takes a great defense to win. If you look Troy Aikman's teams in Dallas, Steve Young's team in 49ers, and Joe Montana and Brett Favre's team, and you think about Reggie White and Leroy Butler, you better have great teams, great defenses, and great players to win it all.
And you just mentioned some of those wide receivers that you had. You being the quarterback, how important is it to have that good relationship with your receivers and be on the same page? You
got to be. I mean, it happens. It happens in the off season, throwing at each other. It happens in the meetings. Happens in the walkthroughs. It happens over time. Experience of being together. Sometimes they don't make a great throw. Sometimes they don't catch every ball. But it's that thing of not panicking with each other, being on the same wavelength with each other, trusting each other, and giving each other a chance to be successful. But you better have a great quarterback, and you better have great receivers, and you better have a line. So it takes all the factors in there. But the trust factor is big. And a lot of times I would ask the receivers, like, hey, were you covered? You know what I mean? On a particular route. And most of them, they're going to say no, because they want you to throw them the ball. But I said, listen, just tell me the truth, because, I want to make sure I'm reading it out right on certain plays. And but we had that kind of, all those guys I'm talking about, they went on to be successful people and smart guys. Want to be smart players. And I can't tell you everybody's a smart player, but those guys I played with Keyshawn and Joe Giravicius and Keenan McCardell, they were smart players and, going on to show it in the rest of their life too.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then you mentioned it earlier, you played under head coach Jon Gruden. He's known as a great NFL mind, a hard-nosed type guy that gets the best out of his players. So what was it like playing under Gruden, and is there any memory or interaction that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I love playing for Gruden. I remember when I actually played for the Washington Redskins. Before that, I remember watching a Monday night game. That was about the time Jon Gruden, I remember they were playing, and he was yelling at his quarterback, Rich Gannon, and I told my wife, Nikki, I said, God, this guy's out of control. I would never want to play for Jon Gruden, out of control. And I also remember Keyshawn Johnson, he wrote a book called Get Me the Damn Ball. And I said, man, I would never want to play with a receiver that writes a book like that. But actually, and then we ended up being together, all 3 of us, we all got, while we were there, we got along great. And but I love playing for Gruden. He's a great teacher of the game, great motivator, made me a better player, great teacher of understanding what defenses, how they attack you, and then how to attack them. And so love playing for Gruden. He had a big impact on my career, my life, and very thankful for those times.
Did Gruden, would you say, had the biggest impact on you, or was there another head coach that kind of overtook that? Or
Well, I mean, it's a story of all kind of coaches. My two high school coaches and growing up, Kenny Ford, he actually taught me back into playing basketball. I mean, playing football. And my basketball coach, Bill Burrows, and then Bobby Bowden at Florida State, and Mark Richt at Florida State, and then Denny Green and Brian Billick and Norv Turner and Tony Dungy and Jon Gruden. So, I mean, they all come along at the right time, hopefully at the right time of your career. So it's very impactful to play for Gruden. And, you know, I caught him at an older time in my life instead of being a first-year player. It had been a lot to learn as a first-year player, his terminology, his system. But being in my 9th, 10th year of my career, it kind of came along in a perfect time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I keep forgetting that you played at Florida State and Bobby Bowden, because Bobby Bowden, I know we're sticking with the NFL, Gruden and Dungy, but Bobby Bowden is one of the greatest college football coaches ever. He's up there with Bear Bryant. He's up there with Nick Saban. So just if you want to touch on that quickly, we kind of forgot about that, but Bobby Bowden, how much of an impact did he have? Because obviously, like I said, Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, he's kind of in that conversation. That's a great conversation to be in.
100%. Coach Bowden, he passed away this past year. When I went to Florida State in 1987, that was the beginning of a 14-year run as far as winning 10 games and finishing in the top 4 every year. He was great at his coaches were never leaving. They stayed there. It was a family, if that's what you want to say. Had all the respect in the world for Coach Bowden. Great coach, great teacher, great motivator, class. He shared his testimony with everyone. The way he impacted our lives when he, you know, it's been generational, you know, as far as the way a lot of us have become coaches and people in our community and trying to give back, those kind of things, the way he handled himself. And it's very unique that you get a coach to be who he is and to be able to share his testimony, to be able to coach and win at that level, and to do it for that consistency, to be at one school for over 34 years is incredible. And so it's an honor that I thought he might retire when he won his 200th game, and he went on to win 365 games. So he did it the right way and with all class.
Yeah, Bobby Bowden, probably one of the greatest coaches to do in college football. Going back to the NFL, you played for, obviously, we mentioned the Vikings, the Redskins, the Buccaneers, and the Cowboys. Out of those 4 teams, what situation did you have the best memories of? And if you can share a couple of stories from that specific team, kind of outside of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, listen, I had some great times and I had some rough times at every place, you know. Minnesota, I was thankful for. I was there for 7 years. Early in my career, got to play in one system and under Denny Green and Brian Billick, and pretty awesome. They kind of, you know, weaned me, you know, brought me in to teach me how to be a quarterback and those kind of things. And then went on to Washington and played for 2 years for Norv Turner. And it's the first year that we ever went to, they hadn't been in the playoffs in like 7 or 8 years. And it was an awesome time to kind of help turn that place around. At that time, I hadn't been to too many playoffs games since, to be honest with you. But and then went to Tampa, won a Super Bowl, got to play for Tony Dungy and Jon Gruden, and then went back to Minnesota for 2 years and played for Mike Tice and Brad Childress, and then went on to Dallas and played my last 2 years and with Jason Garrett and Wade Phillips. But I think when I say all those names, I'm talking about guys that have won Super Bowls as a head coach. Think about all the Hall of Famers I played with, Chris Carter, and through Chris Carter's 100th touchdown pass, through Tim Brown's his 100th touchdown pass, through Randy Moss his first touchdown pass, through Warren Sapp his first touchdown pass. I threw a touchdown on myself. Only the first player to ever do that in Minnesota. So won an SP award. So I think just great memories, and think about all the players I play with as pretty legends, and kind of pinch myself looking back at my career.
Yeah, touching, you just mentioned you were the first ever player to throw a touchdown pass to themselves until Marcus Mariota recently did that. But was that probably your most memorable play or favorite play of your career? Or is there any other that just stands out to you at the top of your head?
It's probably the most unique play because it's never happened before. A lot of times a quarterback I think it's Brett Favre's first catch was actually to himself. It has to hit someone and you catch it. Mm-hmm. And then usually when you catch it, you're probably midfield. So when I did mine, the play was called dot left spear, rip Dallas. Basically, it was a stick flat by the tight end and the fullback, and the ball got deflected. We're playing against the Carolina Panthers and came back to me. And I knew I couldn't throw it again. You can't throw 2-4 passes, and kind of scrambled. It was only from the 3-yard line. If it had been from the 4, I might have been a yard short, but jumped in the end zone, dove in the end zone, and didn't know what it was. We didn't know if it was touchdown pass, touchdown catch, what it was. And then after we found it, figured out it was 12 points in fantasy football, and just a unique play. I talked to Marcus Mariota about 2 years ago. We kind of laughed about it and those kind of things. So it's pretty cool play looking back.
Me and Pete we recently just watched the video. You put on some moves there. You were juking guys out too. You were pretty mobile on that play.
That was younger legs. So, but it was pretty cool play.
Yeah, that play was we've actually never seen that play. We're huge football fans since we were younger, but obviously we weren't alive when that play happened. But yeah, we've never seen that. But that was something special. You forgot the number was. It was Houston Oilers against you guys played against that game, right?
Panthers. I was actually against
Panthers. That's what it was. But number 56, you kind of put him on skates on that play, which was it was really cool to watch.
What happened?
You put number 56.
I heard you.
So kind of sticking to the quarterback. As a quarterback, what do you think your biggest strength was? Was it your accuracy, your deep ball, your short ball? Like if you had one strength that pinpoint as you as a quarterback, what do you think it was?
I think being prepared, knowing where my outlets were, having audibles to check out of bad plays. I thought I was really great at distributing the ball to different players. I didn't have a strong arm, like crazy arm. I could throw the ball 60 yards, but like couldn't just hose it in there like some of these guys now with, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers. I didn't have that kind of arm, but had plenty of arm to play. But I think, utilizing all the players around me, getting the ball to the backs on check downs and finding the outlets and just kind of keeping everybody on the same page, play winning football, which is hard to do. And it's really interesting, like with QB ratings, I think they should be a part of the rating should be, I don't think you should ever subtract from somebody for losing a game, but I think you should get bonus points for winning. There's a way to play the game. The year we won the Super Bowl, people don't realize, but I had 52 throwaways. 52 throwaways. Do the math. That's 3.4 a game, right in that range. It's a lot of throwaways, but not taking the sack, keeping the situations in manageable situations, second, medium, third, and short, and being able to score in the red zone, but managing the game is a big deal. And but I think those are the qualities I had as a player. I don't think there's one thing special I had if you're just looking, trying to find YouTube highlights and how far did he throw it and make some crazy play. I think mine was just having everybody on the same page and playing winning football.
Obviously, the NFL QB game has completely changed. It's a lot of just dropping back. You're going to throw the ball 45, 50 times, and that's what you're going to live with. But who do you see currently in the NFL that kind of reminds you of yourself?
Golly. Well, it's not Mahomes. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not Josh Allen. It's not Kyler Murray. But the game has changed, honestly. Yeah. But I think, I love watching these guys play, Joe Burrows and Justin Herberts and stuff. But I think a little bit of my style really is kind of like Matt Ryan, to be honest with you. I know he's older. He's an older kind of guy, but great decision maker. MVP one year. I was not that guy, but I think as far as getting the ball out on rhythm, getting on time, utilizing all my players. Obviously, Brady's had all the success in the world, but I think very similar in a sense is utilizing the backs, getting to them like that. So I would probably say, honestly, it'd probably be Matt Ryan at this stage if I had to pick out one guy.
Pretty good comparison. Went to a Super Bowl. Obviously, he's at the tail end of his career, won an MVP, but he played in the NFL for that long and be, I bet you, a top 15 quarterback in the NFL for Matt Ryan. It's a pretty tough accomplishment.
Listen, he's had way much better career than I ever had as far as longevity and those kind of things. But I think just the style, not the numbers, the style. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm talking about with play fakes and leading the team, those kind of things. It's probably along that style.
Completely makes sense.
Yeah, and as we see in today's NFL, a lot of former players end up becoming broadcasters or analysts for a network. Did you ever think about doing something like that, or do you think you might possibly try to do that in the future?
I want to know part of that. Okay. I played 17 years in the NFL, and I knew when my career was over, I really wanted to hone in on My wife, Nikki, and I have 2 boys, Max and Jake. I want to coach all their teams. I want to be involved in the community that I'm in, living here in Athens, Georgia. Coach all my kids, coach middle school, youth basketball, youth football, middle school basketball, middle school football, high school football. I went to the state championship the last couple of years, got beat in the finals by overtime. But so my boys, they went on, they're playing at both at Texas A&M right now. One's a quarterback, one's a tight end. And but I really enjoyed family time. I didn't want to be on the road traveling. I didn't want to be a coach recruiting. I didn't want to be a coach getting fired. And those weren't the things I want to be a part of. I really want to be a part of my family and the community. And that's kind of what I've done.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely feel that one.
You kind of just touched on it. Obviously, both your boys are at Texas A&M, but your son Max, who's following your footsteps, is playing quarterback. Obviously, he was just at LSU and just recently transferred to A&M. So, what has been your biggest kind of impact on him and your other son as well? But obviously, he's a quarterback, so he kind of plays the same position. So, how have you taught him over the years, and is he similar to you as a quarterback?
Yeah, it's really unique. He's a much better athlete than I am, much stronger arm than I ever had. But I think, coached him how to play quarterback out of the womb, pretty much, how to take a 3-step, 5-step, how to take a snap and those kind of things. I think the hardest thing about coaching a quarterback or your son is really just be a great decision maker every day. Be on time, be ahead of time, be organized, be prepared, get the best out of others, encourage someone beside yourself, those kind of things, and then be decisive and be confident in who you are and what you want to accomplish. So those are the kind of things we talk about. And I feel like where Max is at. So it's kind of fun to watch his whole career. And so hopefully things will turn out great for him at Texas A&M. I'm excited about it. My younger son, Jake, is a tight end. I don't know how to block. I don't know how to run routes. I don't know how to catch. So it's totally different. Coaching and teaching them, but we throw a lot of balls together and stuff. But they're very similar. They're best friends, but they're very unique in their approach, and it's gonna be fun to watch them.
It's kind of cool. They ended up going to the same college, like playing with each other. I think that's pretty unique. Cool.
It's very unique. So it's excited for both of them. They're actually roommates. They got another roommate, a kid named Gabe Dindy and stuff. But it's pretty cool. They're like Max and Jake are like Tom and Jerry. They're best friends, but they also fight and beat each other up at all times too. And who's taller, who's stronger. It's all the above. Big brother, little brother, all those kind of things. It's pretty cool. But when they get on the football field, that's the one time they don't fight. That's the one time they actually communicate. They just kind of just do the work. So it's kind of fun to see that too.
That is neat. That's cool.
Thank you, Brad. We really appreciate you coming on. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys reaching out. So you guys are going to have a great career and a lot of fun with it. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Guys, if you guys want to drop a comment and drop a like on this video, that would be appreciative. Make sure you follow us on our social medias. Make sure you also follow Brad on Twitter and Instagram. We'll definitely put his Instagram and Twitter in our description so you can guys go follow him. Jerry, anything else you got to say?
Yeah, I got one more question. Who do you got winning this year's Super Bowl?
Damn, I tell you, I thought it was going to be Buffalo and Green Bay, and they're both out. So, so I have no stinking clue. But I'm actually cheering for the 49ers because John Lynch, he was my roommate for 3 years at Tampa, made the Hall of Fame this past year. So I'm cheering for those guys. But I tell you what, Kansas City went to the AFC Championship 4 straight years. Yeah. Got a chance to be out of the Super Bowl 3 out of these last 4 years. So who knows, man? A lot of great players. We'll sit back and kind of enjoy it.
Yeah. It's going to be a good one.
Yep.
Okay, guys, until next time, make sure you drop a like, drop a comment, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and also follow Brad on both those social media platforms. But until next time, this was the Talking Sports Podcast with Peter DiBiasi and Rocco Trumpbour right here on YouTube and Apple Podcast. Have a nice rest of your day.